Hello, guys. This is me here, Gunjan Moulik, your host of League of Greatness. Today, we have an important guest. His name is Andrew David Rees. He's from UK, from Dublin, and he's been helping businesses and industry from a very long time. He has an hands-on experience in computer technology since the very beginning. He's by far one of the most oldest and most wise person in this industry. He has gained lots of wisdom, lots of things, experiences that have helped him to help other people and his own business to stand. All right. So we can learn today lots of important things about cybersecurity and how it is important, as we know that we are living in a terrific moment where cyber security is one of the very much important, most wanted things in these days, as cyber attacks are happening every single day and none of our devices are safe. So we are going to learn from somebody who is in this industry and with in touch of computers since the first moon landing. All right. So his experience, gathered experience and knowledge is really going to help us in these days to protect our home, businesses and devices and use it in a proper way so that we can secure ourselves, our friends and family members, and from these new kind of threats. All right, let's begin. Hello, hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for that wonderful introduction, Gunjan. I'm doing really well. I'm so passionate about what I do, and I'm enjoying it. And I think we live in very interesting times. Now, that's a Chinese proverb in itself, where you live in interesting times, because they can be interesting good and they can be interesting bad, but they're certainly challenging. And that's what I like about my life as a cybersecurity expert, that there's new challenges every day. You're always learning something new. But you're right about that history coming through, that experience coming through, helps me address the threats of today as well.
Yep. So before beginning about this topic about cybersecurity, I just wanted to know, since you have very long experience, how you came into contact with this kind of technology, like computer technology and this all kind of new things that people use. How you came in contact in such an early age?
Well, yeah, you're right. I sat in front of the TV watching the moon landings, and I was totally enthralled by them. And you can imagine then they had the height of computing power at those times, where a K of memory, not a megabyte, not gigabytes, a K of memory was what you had to work with, and you had to be very efficient in your coding. And the thing about those days is that the computers were very specific to a single task. So it was a lot more difficult and challenging to actually break those systems because they were designed for a single task. They didn't do anything else. I then went in my school days, and we had a computer system that we actually sent punch cards, so like a card about this sort of size with holes punched in it, which the computers read. We had to send them away. They would go and work on them, and then you get the results back about a week later. If you had a bug in your program at that point, you had a week before you found out it was wrong, and you had to do it again and send it off. So it was very difficult to get into it then. And then we had the first home computers coming out, the TRS-80 and Video Genies. The PETs came out not long after that. And again, they were very limited in their functionality. They had no interconnect connection. They were standalone machines. So again, nothing really that you could hack into. It's all home-based. And then I got my first job in computers. And what we had then, we had Microsoft DOS. We started to have networking connections. This was pre-Windows. So it was still difficult to break into, but because we're starting to get connections, things were starting to happen in that field that made it easier to break into these systems remotely. We had things like phone-up internet. If you've seen the film War Games, it was pretty true to life. We had what they called an acoustic coupler, which was like a microphone and speaker that you connected to your telephone to actually connect us to the internet. Very slow speeds. We called about 1,200 baud bits per second. So again, you couldn't really do a great deal of hacking, but you could do little bits of hacking. And we used to do what was called war driving then. So you get a list of phone numbers and you get the computer to dial them until you found a tone that it connected to. And you thought, I've connected to a computer. And then you could try and break into it. And that was, most people were doing it for fun those days. And then we sort of moved on, and I got my first job in the UK government. And I wasn't really doing security at the time. I was doing performance testing. And one of the things we had then, and I can talk about it now because it was so long ago, we had a test rig with about 80 computers, all simulating different computers each one. So for it's 320 computers simulated as if people were actually sitting there typing at them. And there was a point in all of these, you had to go through every single screen to get them to move on. And that point was where you put your personal identifying device in, which is like a credit card. And that meant you had to spend time going through every single screen, moving it forward to get around that. And Bill Gates said this thing: if you want something done quickly, ask a lazy person. I did not like having to go through this tedious process of kicking off every single machine. So I edited the data and inserted a personal identifier into the data stream. And suddenly I could just kick all the machines off and they'd just go in one go. And somebody said around me, said, you shouldn't be able to do that. That's broken our security. You're supposed to have to physically put the identifier in, and you can't just inject it. And that was my first, I've broken security here. And that got me curious. And that's one of the things I think that everybody needs in this industry is a curious mind. That sparked me. I think, what else can I do from this? How can I make things work in ways they shouldn't work? After that, I got hired by another government department because I had all the right sort of skill sets, but at this time as my first professional security role. And what I did then, they had a system that had antivirus, it had hard disk encryption, it had whitelisting of applications, so only applications that were authorized were allowed to run on it. But Word 6 had just come out, Microsoft Word 6, and it had API calls. And they had a team office email system. And I started playing with this, and they had BASIC built into Word. So hang on, I can program within an application. So that got me thinking, well, if I can program in an application, I can send somebody a document, they'll open it, and I should be able to run this code on their system. So I started playing that. It took me about 2 weeks from start to finish of actually writing a document that I sent to their departmental security officer. And when he opened that document, he read it and he said, okay, right, fine, read the document, closed it. But in the background, it was running my code. And what it did, it sent me back a list of all the files that he had access to. And I went to him a couple of days and said, look, this is what I've produced. I have got all your files.
You can see those things from your own computer, what he has, everything.
Everything. I just mailed it back to me. This had never been done before. And if you think about it, that was actually the first ever world's phishing attack.
Wow.
So if you ever get phished, sorry guys, I started that.
So you started that trend that today the scammers are using.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he said, that's a massive hole, isn't it? Because it just blew through all their security. And I said, yeah. So he teamed me up with a guy called Pete Simpson, who is a good programmer. And together, we created a defense against that sort of attack. We didn't know what viruses really looked like in those days. We didn't have signatures. We just know we don't want you doing these bad things in our system.
So did you tell that person whose computer been hacked by you? Did you ever inform that guy like what he was doing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we were being paid for. We were being paid to ethically hack. We were paid to break into systems, find out where the problems were with security, so that we could then fix them. And between us, we created a program called Diffuse, and basically it looked for these malicious emails coming in and stopped them performing their actions. So WinWord Concept, which was the first macro virus that got released into the wild, came into the department, hit the system, and then just got stopped because we blocked the actions. Now, since then, you've got the likes of McAfee, Norton, Symantec. They all came up with their own mechanisms. Their antivirus systems, they needed updating every year. They needed the signatures updating. Ours didn't need any of that, but we didn't have the marketing budget to compete with people like them. So they really took over in the antivirus field. But yeah, we were the first people to create defenses against malicious macros and phishing type attacks.
And what was the company? What was the name for that?
The company who ran it was called Portcullis. I'm not sure if they're still around these days. I mean, this was going back quite a while ago. And I'll say it was a UK government department that I was working for at the time, which the UK government departments have all changed names well since then. So I don't think that's particularly relevant to the conversation. So yeah, that was my first steps really into information security and how to attack systems and how to defend them. And when I looked at it, you think things like, if you're attacking a system, you've got to think like a hacker, not think about how this should work, but how can I make it work differently? How can I do things that I want to do when it's not supposed to do that? And then as a defender, you're going to think, how do I stop those sort of things? So from that department, I worked with other government departments, helping them. I worked with government defense departments, and they had very strict security requirements, because you can think the threat actors against them were other governments, nation states threat actors. They were sponsored by them. They may not be direct, but that's what was being targeted against those. There's a company in the UK called Kinetic, who are specifically in the defense field, and they have a lot of very good secure engineers. And I worked with them for a little while as well, helping develop government level security for systems. And they had very high levels of state-sponsored threat actors to them. Everything on there, we intercepted between the internet and internal and inspected before it was allowed through. That would mean things like banking systems, that you couldn't use that from your work computer, which just wouldn't work because everything broke in the middle. And there we saw very interesting attacks. So they would use things like domain name services. So when you type a name into that URL, the address bar, or the website you want to go to, the domain name services takes that, translates it into an internet address and not a numeric number, and it connects to that, helps you connect through to that site. And it's only supposed to do that one function. But the problem with domain name services, it has to be always on. It has to allow those connections through. And actors would use that in a way that it wasn't intended to tunnel information in and out. It has to be a communication there. If you're connected to the internet, you have to have domain name services running. So they were using it in a way that it wasn't intended to. And again, we could see that going on. And obviously, because we broke it in the middle, we could inspect it, see what they were doing, and block it. So that they were very high level in defense systems. I then went on to work for financial institutions like United Bank of Switzerland, the Global Finance Organization. You can see this on my LinkedIn pages. Hitachi Capital was another fintech that I worked with. So I was taking my government experience into a still high threat environment, but not as high a threat as government and defense. Obviously, banking systems, they obviously want to protect the financial flow of information around their systems, and it's when you'll read this like £50 in someone's bank account, which to some people could be a very significant amount of money, to millions and billions and even trillions. Where one financial system I was looking after, $1 trillion went through that every year, and this was like about 20 years ago. So you can think of the value that's going through those systems today. They had significant interest in protecting their systems. And then I started looking at helping smaller businesses, because they don't have the clout that governments and finance institutions have to be able to secure their systems against these sort of threats. So helping smaller business, you talk about security on a shoestring, how to do it in a financially competent way. So it didn't spend too much on it, but they spent enough that they could block most of the threats against the smaller businesses. And what I looked at, there's 3 types of threat actors really in the world. Your first type is like myself. You're somebody who does this for the fun of it, and they're interested in it. What can I break, and then how can I fix it? the ethical hacking side of things. And then you've got your real criminals. They're the ones who are going after the money. And they will do whatever they can to find a way to minimize an attack. Now, whether that's like a distributed denial of service attack, where they throw lots and lots of data at you to try and overwhelm your system so it doesn't function. And then they send you a message saying, if you pay us some money, we'll stop doing this. And then you've got the ransomware-like attacks that they will do. Say?
Yeah.
Okay, so the
phishing
next
attack.
thing
They fish you with an email.
Yeah. The phishing emails are usually trying to get the foot in the door so that somebody inside the organization will click on a link, access some malicious code. It comes into their organization and it sits there and it starts encrypting all the systems around them. This is like a ransomware attack. Once they've encrypted that, they say, we've got the keys to unlock that encryption. So they put a lock on all your files. We'll sell you the key, and then you can unlock it, and then you get back your data back. And that's another way of trying to get money out of your system. You're seeing a lot of Bitcoin type scams where they're going after, where they're saying,
crypto mining.
Yeah. So wherever those second type of attackers, so they're looking for the money. And then the third type of attacker really is your state-sponsored attacker, and they're looking to see how they can weaken your country. They're looking at, can I attack your critical national infrastructure? Things like your water utilities, your electricity, your finance systems, and your internet system itself. If they can bring any of those down, they can cripple your country. So they're the three real types of threats actors that we look at. And it doesn't matter what period in history, that's what you really see from the threat side of things. From our side of things, we are looking at, again, three main things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the confidentiality is we're making sure that only the people who are authorized to see information can actually see it. So this is things like, if you're doing your banking system, it's only you and your bank that can see that transactions and the information between them. The integrity is, okay, if I can manipulate a little bit of information in a financial system, if I can flip a 0 to a 1, I can suddenly add $1 million into an account by just flipping a bit. So the integrity on financial system is extremely paramount. I can't have people flipping little bits, ones and zeros, because that can make a massive impact to my organization. And then the availability of it is that people can have access to their information at the time they need it to. If I can stop you having access to your information, like that distributed denial of service attack I was talking about, then I've basically stopped you operating. One of the things on the integrity side we've seen is government websites particularly being defaced. And that's an embarrassing thing for them to be doing that. But if I can change your website and the integrity of it, so when you click on that button to pay for an item you've just ordered on that website, it goes somewhere else. That, again, is another way of getting money out of people's pockets and into the criminals.
So that is what they're doing it. I mean, they're changing the main government website to something else. Recently, we have seen in India is that they're changing the banking website and they're relinking it to their own website, so people fill the banking detail in their website and they can take the money from them.
Yep, absolutely. So those three principles, looking at the three main threat actors and the three main defense vectors that we have, those principles have carried through right through to present day when we started looking at artificial intelligence. This again is something I've been working with for over 10 years. IBM Watson came along, I started doing some work with that a while back, and the Smart Cities program with IBM. And again, looking at AI systems, there's confidentiality. Can I use the AI system and it not being siphoned off somewhere else? We found that people have been able to get access to other people's chat history via links that have been shared automatically, which they shouldn't be visible. The integrity of it, when the information that I'm asking out of the AI is correct. It's not hallucinating, that it's not learnt something that is false. So that again comes down to the integrity of it, and again the availability of it. The internet was taken down for about 3 hours. Amazon Web Services went down for about 3 hours the other day, and that is what is hosting these AIs. So they have to be up and running in order for people to be able to use them. So again, it doesn't matter what the technology, no matter how that's changed over the decades that I've actually worked at this. Those principles, the threat actors, the curious person who was just having a go and trying to see what breaks, the criminals who are after the money, and the state-sponsored threat actors who are trying to do damage to your country, that they're on one side of it, they're the primary threats. And on the other side of it, we're looking at the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Doesn't matter what the technology is, those are the three main attack vectors and the three main defenses that we are looking at.
Surely. So here, one of the things, a few of the things that like I want to ask you, for the people who are new into the cybersecurity, do not know too much about the technology things and all, just new to the internet and social media things and all, and people think that the Facebook is secure, WhatsApp is secure, Instagram is secure, because those things are protected by Meta, and their iPhone is secure. They have an antivirus in their phone that makes their phone secure. If they have an Android phone, they have an antivirus in their computer that makes their computer secure. So can you just tell me, are this really secure? Can this be hacked even if you have an antivirus, even if you have an iPhone with security and all?
So if you think about it, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, security is a major concern for these people, and they have budgets ranging up to the billions to actually create their defenses. So they have put a lot of time and effort into making sure that their systems are reasonably secure. Now, you cannot have 100% security. It doesn't exist. If somebody wants to attack somebody, they'll do it either, they'll do it physically. We see this. There's a great meme where somebody's got their laptop, it's encrypted, nobody can get into this, and then somebody walks up, put a gun to your head, like, unlock your laptop. It can happen. That can happen. If you're going through borders of any country, usually the customs have the right to inspect what you're bringing into the country, and if you're bringing your tablet, your laptop into there, they can ask you to unlock it and have a look at it. So whilst they are doing everything they can, if you as a user don't use it in the safe manner, then there's not a lot they can do about it. And we see a lot of people where they'll get phoned up and they'll say, "Oh, we're from your bank. We need to help you secure your account because we've had these problems." And they'll ask you to transfer money. They'll ask you for PIN numbers, and they're very careful in how they craft that conversation. And eventually they get it out of you. So if the person who's using the device is not aware of how to use it safely and securely, then that security breaks down at that point. So I say they've put a lot of money and effort into doing this. And the second thing to consider with them is they've also provided a hell of a lot of functionality. If you think about those early days of computers, where we were talking about the Apollo landings, we had 1K memory, and every computer is designed to do one function, then it was harder to break. Now, that phone has a lot more processing power than the Apollo mission, and they had room-sized computers. Your life is on here, like as you say, your Facebook, your WhatsApp, your banking is on here. There's so much functionality in it, and if I can link those functionalities, if I can work on the applications on there to communicate to each other and break the security of it, then that's we can get around it that way. And that's one of the things that does concern me.
So antivirus does not protect your phone, and the phone security that comes along with this, like the Apple security, Samsung security, is it that easy to break?
If you're not a state actor, it is very difficult to break. If you've got the resources of a state, you're going to get around there. And there have been known instances of state-sponsored attacks getting through Apple's defenses. I'm not going to highlight them on here because I don't want to give people the opportunity to go and research it and find out and do it. But there are certainly a number of attacks that have broken through those defenses. It's always a war between the threat actors and the defenders, and it keeps doing that. They break in, we increase the security, we fix it. They break in again, there's a different way, we fix that. That is constantly ongoing. But as a user in our general, if it was a problem, we wouldn't be using these. In general, 99.999% of the time, this is safe, it's secure, it's working. It's those 0.001% of the times when it happens, and it happens to you, it feels so personal. If this security didn't work, we wouldn't be functioning. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be able to use Facebook if security wasn't working most of the time. So I think in general, we've got to the point where we accept that we've traded some security features off and privacy against the functionality and usability. That's the balance we have in life. Facebook knows a lot about us. It knows about us even when we're not using Facebook. It puts things like what are called pixels. So everybody knows about cookies. We click the button to accept. Yes, we'll accept those cookies. But there's another thing called pixels, and they embed them on web pages, and it feeds back to Facebook, regardless of whether you actually even have a Facebook account. What's been going on those websites where they've got the Facebook pixels, and it tracks you that way. So in doing that, they find out a lot more about us, but then they present us with things that are benefit to us. So it can show you opportunities, it can show you news feeds that we know you're interested in this subject, so we'll feed you more of that. Which means you're not seeing a lot of stuff that you might not be interested in. It annoys me a little bit because I feel like we've been put in our bubble, and sometimes I want to see what's outside that bubble. There are other things I'm interested in there, but you're just giving me your view that you think that that's what I like. And sometimes there's stuff I'd like to see that isn't in that bubble. But that's just where we've traded off our privacy for that functionality. At one point, Google drove around the world, literally street mapping. There were cars going down with big cameras on the top of them and LiDAR mapping everything that went along. And people go, but that's my privacy. And people's faces were actually being seen on street map. People's houses were on street map. And now that was their early technologies, and they went, okay, now they blur people's faces. Now they mask out the license plates on cars. If you don't want your house to be on there, you can go on and say, please take my house off, and they can do that. But that invasion of privacy, it broke privacy laws in a lot of countries, but then they did it anyway, and they defended against it. They went to the courts and they put up their defenses. But then eventually it became accepted because it was so useful to us that people go, okay, I use Google Maps all the time. I use Waze for my traveling around and plotting my routes around, and it's been very, very helpful. So again, that's an element. We've traded privacy for functionality and just accepted it. And what I see more about young people coming along is, I've got grandsons who've been using things like Alexa since they were 3. They're now 6 and 10, 6 and 8, and they use tablets, they use YouTube, they pick this up and they just use it. They don't think anything about security, they just use these things. And in general, they do well. And my feeling on these is when they are using it, it's down to the parents to educate themselves about what the threats are. Their kids are going to pick up these things and use them anyway. If you ban them at home, they'll have friends who've got them and they'll borrow theirs at some point and use them. You can't, stop it completely. So I think as parents and grandparents, we need to educate ourselves on what the threats are, keep an eye on how our kids are using these devices, and help them spot when dangerous. When we were young, we used to talk about stranger danger. The Green Cross code to teach you how to cross the road. We have to apply that sort of thinking to modern day lifestyle.
Exactly. Now strangers are in our phone, in our day-to-day lives, within contacts.
Yeah. It's embedded. It's there. It's always on. Our phones are always listening to us. Then if you've got a phone in the house, it's listening to your kids as well as listening to you just as much. Have you ever had that feeling where you've talked about something and then the next thing is on Facebook, you get adverts
Yes,
for it?
I have seen that often. Like previously, I was trying to having some conversation about some kind of things in Amazon that I saw in headphone or something that I was willing to buy, and the next thing is that I'm seeing that ads in Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. So how is
Yeah.
these things are happening? Are they listening to us?
So there's a company in America, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Literally, that's what they do, is they listen to your conversations, they burn it through an analyzer, come up with marketing from there, and feed that back into the likes of Instagram, Facebook, Meta, whatever, so that they can target you with effective advertising. They know you're interested in it because you've talked about that subject. It happens. And so we're in a surveillance by default society now. Whether we like it or not, this is where we've got to. And some countries are better at it than others. If you go to China, for example, they now have this idea of surveilling the population, and they present good behaviors. You get rewarded from the state and be able to do more. And if you do bad behaviors, they'll punish you. They'll stop you having internet access. They'll stop you being able to travel. So the surveillance society is here. We are living in it. Whether we like it or not, it's already happened.
Wow, it's fantastic. There is so much surveillance. We have seen that there's so much state-sponsored banning on people because they have talked about something that shouldn't. The surveillance is happening, and we need to get aware of this and as fast as possible. Like our phone are listening to us, and is there any way to stop this? Like to stop our phone to listen to our conversation, private things, and all?
It's interesting when you look at what's going on. There are things like I have a little flip down here. My camera's off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that, but nobody disconnects a microphone. I actually demonstrated this at a global bank one day, and I left a laptop in the office. And again, this is going back into the early days where we had dial-up phone conversations. I dialed up my laptop that was connected to the phone network in there and turn the speaker on. And because my laptop was left there, I could listen to the conversations in that area. And I showed them, this is a risk. If somebody comes in, leaves a laptop, plugs it onto the phone line, they can dial it up and they can be listening to your conversations. Your microphones are everywhere. What people don't realize a lot in television speakers, well, a speaker is just a microphone, only a larger scale. It does exactly the same. So as it puts out sound, it can actually feel those vibrations and push them back as well. So turning off microphones, it's very challenging to do that. The only real way to do it on a phone is to let the battery drain, let it go completely dead. To do it around your house, think how many speakers you have around your house now. How many TVs have you got? How many radios have you got?
So we have to turn all the things off, disconnect it properly from the electricity.
The thing is, if you really wanted to get away from surveillance, you'd have to go completely off-grid. Generate your own electricity supplies. There are ways of tapping into buildings. They call it temp testing, where they can get electronic images from your pipes for your radiators, for example. They can listen to conversations in the room by playing lasers against the windows. So the Israelis have actually found a way of mapping keyboards, so they can listen to your typing on a keyboard and they know which keys you've pressed on it. So if you really wanted to get out of this, you'd have to go into the wild, completely cut yourself off, and then guess what? You've made yourself more interesting. How did they find Osama bin Laden? There was a compound that he was in, and there was no phones allowed on the compound. No technology allowed in there, and so there's like this hole in the middle, like where there's phones all around it. It's like, that's an interesting place because there's no activity there. And it's, we're more interested in that now, and that's how they eventually how they found him. It's like we found this hole. One of the hackers that I've spoken with, he said, the way he tries to avoid it was whenever he's having a go at trying to hack something, he would then play videos in the background to consume bandwidth and try and hide his hacking activities among the stream of video data that's going around in the house as well. So actually being noisy and hiding in the noise can be easier today than trying to actually shut it all off and going off grid. But then I also ask the question, is it affecting our general day-to-day lives? Are we living better because of this technology? Are we actually, being looked after better and protected within our country because of this surveillance? And is it being able to, this? Not only is it logging at what we're doing, but it's stopping people who might be malicious attacking us. And I think security is definitely more about a balance and reality. We know that this is going on with nation-state actors constantly. You said we were constantly being attacked. When I first built a Windows 95 machine, and in the early days, I connected it directly to the internet to see what would happen. Before it had finished being built, before it had finished installing the operating system on there, a virus had already got onto it.
Wow.
So, if you didn't have a firewall, you'd have something in there already. It may take like about 15, 20 minutes to actually build a computer from switching it onto the operating system being installed and you're getting your first login prompt on there. So within that 15, 20-minute window, that system had been compromised. So it is constantly, we're under attack, but our defenses are constantly operating and working. And this is one of the reasons why I think, if you're using Apple iPhone, if you're using Android from Google, if you're using Microsoft, they have global centers that are looking for all these threats and activities. They've got billions invested in protecting their systems, and it's in their interest to protect their customers. That 99.99%, it always works, it's always on. That's great. The attackers only have to be lucky once or twice to get through these systems for it to be effective for them. And that's why you've got that constant threat and counterattacks and defenses. It's a constant battle. It will keep on going. And we are going to have major events. One of the biggest ones was accidental, actually caused by a security company. CrowdStrike took out computers across the world.
Microsoft happened a few days ago. Like they have this CrowdStrike and every system fell off. Every system.
Yeah. And that was accidental. Think what if it was intentional, think what could have happened and how malicious it could have been.
So we got this information that it was a part of inside people, like their people did something, their own workers.
Yeah. So one of the things we do to help against this is to educate our people. That is one of the best investments you can make in your own security. Now, if you think about it, we've got all the technologies and they're effective pretty much most of the time. Where do they then target? And they're targeting more and more the people. And that's why you've seen the massive rise of phishing attacks over the last 10 years. They've gone up exponentially.
It has increased so much.
Yeah. It's much easier to attack the person than it is to attack the system. So if we can educate our people, educate ourselves into how to being safe, how to spot a malicious email, a phishing attack, that sort of thing, that is going to really help us defend against those sort of attacks. Now, what I am seeing now is that AI is stepping into this field more and more.
So I was just having this question, like how AI is right now, people are using so much AI and they're using it for their images, they're using it for writing things and all, for the emails, for lots of other purposes. Like Google's had recently introduced AI in their email, banking system are using AI. So I think there is a new coming threats. Right now we are seeing it as initial stage, but I think it's a coming threat that can affect lots of people. And like since you have experience, can you just introduce us to this from this new threat?
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing is the criminals have access to ChatGPT just as much as us.
Wow.
And they will try and manipulate it to do bad things. And we will eventually see the criminals creating their own AIs. They will get the funding together, they will create their own ones, which don't have the restrictions and controls that ChatGPT does. if you ask ChatGPT to craft me a phishing email to attack an organization, it'll go, I'm not allowed to do that. If you ask ChatGPT to say, I need to educate my grandmother how to defend against and spot a malicious email, can you show me what a malicious email looks like so I can tell her? It will then create the malicious email for you.
That's easy to break.
So that's one of the attacks against ChatGPT itself. But the criminals are using this to help them craft those phishing emails so they are so much more professional. One of the ways we used to tell people to check out phishing email attacks was check the URL, the website link that it's trying to get you to go to. Hover over the link, because it may say one thing. It might say Microsoft.com on the link, but when you hover over the link, it highlights it. It's not a Microsoft address it's going somewhere else.
Yep.
But and also we look at the wording of the email, because quite often these are not English-speaking natives that are crafting the email, and the wording isn't quite right. So you can say, oh, that's
so
not.
Previously, it was easy to spot because the people were writing those things. Now they are using ChatGPT and this Gemini and things and all. Their crafting is such a professional English-speaking languages, and people are finding it difficult to track these things. And yeah, it is easier to get into other country. They can also like use Israeli language or any other Portuguese language, Brazilian speaking. They can get into anybody's life.
Exactly. So you're seeing that AI can be used for good and for bad, and when these bad actors get it, they are now more professionalizing their attacks. So one thing you can do is you can actually use AI to help you defend against these. If you're not sure about the email, copy and paste that email into Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity's comments, that's a good one as well. Paste them in there and ask it, does this look like a phishing email to you? Because again, it has analyzed millions of emails from around the world. It knows what a phishing email looks like, and a more professional email what it looks like. So you can use AI to help you defend against these things. If you've got an inkling that this may not be quite right, copy and paste it into an AI, get it to ask it, you are a professional expert in anti-phishing techniques, so give it a role. Tell it,
exactly,
this is the email I've received. I need to know what's the likelihood that this is a phishing attack. So you've told it its role, you've given it the information, and then you've asked it to come up with a result for you and tell you what it thinks of it. And that will give you a very good idea of whether that is a phishing attack or not. So we can use this technology for good as well.
For good, yes, exactly. So here, just one of the things that I want to add from my own personal experience. Few days ago, like I was getting a contract from a very good company in UK. They were offering such a good amount of money payment for that some work that they want me to do. And so what happened is that I was thinking, wow, it's a good opportunity. Why shouldn't I proceed with that? So they asked me to contact in WhatsApp. They asked me to contact in the email, send my resume. I almost thought it was such a good opportunity, but later on I thought that there's something is going on. They're paying me too much, and I took their address, their domain address, and their email, and asked ChatGPT, "Can you analyze if this is a real company email or the domain or not?" So they quickly found out that it's a bad email. It's a fraud. And they searched through the internet and found out it's a fraud company that is trying to scam other people. And that's how I knew that they're trying to scam me. So I quickly blocked them and tried to be safe.
Fantastic. That's a brilliant example. One of the things that you picked up on there is, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually isn't. So,
yeah.
You spotted the clues of like, this is a bit more money than it should be for this particular role. And then you went and did something about it. You took action, and that is what people need to do. Start thinking about it like that. If it sounds too good to be true, if it's not quite right, be a bit more suspicious about and check it out, and use these AIs to help you check it. I mean, that's so much easier, isn't it? Than that you've got an expert on hand that knows this stuff that can help you, and you don't have to go on the phone trying to find somebody to help you. You can do it. what I used to get a lot of, because I'm fairly well known and people trust me in what I do, I would get the malicious emails that says, we've caught you on camera doing bad things. So usually they're a sexual exploitation email,
Yep,
and they're
yep,
going
yep.
to they'll say, here's a Bitcoin address. You send me this some money to this address, otherwise I'm going to release this video. And just the thought of it is quite frightening to people. And they
Yep,
also don't know who to turn to, because it's like,
yep,
this is quite intimate, and somebody could think I'm actually doing these things. So who do
yep.
you
They're
turn
using
to?
images to fraud people.
Yeah. So they come to me, and I'd put their mind at rest and say, no, just ignore it, block the email, don't even respond to it. They haven't got you. They're just threatening you, and usually they go away. But for people who don't have somebody they can go to, who they know and trust, to say, can you have a look at this, please? Because I'm a bit concerned, and it's quite intimate, like those sexual exploitation ones. You can put it into ChatGPT, and it'll know straight away that that's a scam one, and it'll be able to give you the great advice on how to make sure you're not caught by it. So yeah, now you don't have to go to experts. Now you can use these AIs to help you defend, and especially where you've got concerns and you're not sure who to turn to, you've got an AI there that can help you.
Yeah, it's very easy these days. Like if they're using AI, then why don't we common people use AI for our own benefit, for our own security? So just copying and pasting any kind of things that you see or any kind of calls that you have received, you just tell this AI and they will surely understand if it is scam call or not. It's a very easy things. So right now, since you have mentioned so much information about AI and this new kind of threats that we're having, and is there any kind of tools and things and all that people can really use to secure from cyber threats? Anything that we can learn from
So on the
businesses,
tooling
from
side,
business? Yep.
I found a lot of the native tools that come in the devices are really good. I have been using Microsoft Windows 8 to 11 and never use a third-party application. You can go to the likes of Semantic and McAfee, and often they come built into when you first get the machine. The first thing I do is I get rid of them, because I'm paying them for something I don't actually need. The operating system nowadays has got pretty good at spotting. And I'll say I've been operating with them since the days of Windows 8 and not had an issue. I have seen things coming up, and I've known not to click on links. So some of that is down to the fact that I'm security conscious and don't follow down the malicious link route. But in general, it's been really good. One thing I do use is a VPN from time to time. And the reason I use that, the one I particularly use is NordVPN. I got it free with my banking app, so great. That can help if I want to be in a cyber cafe, you're using public Wi-Fi, where I'm in a situation where I may not know the Wi-Fi itself and trust it. You go into a coffee shop and you say, I'll use the free Wi-Fi whilst I'm sitting here. The VPN, then, if somebody is sitting locally and set up a malicious Wi-Fi pretending to be the coffee shop, they could get all your information. If you've connected to them, but you're going through a VPN, they still got, they can see that you're on the network, but they can't see what you're actually doing. And so VPNs in those instances are really good. The other product I use is NordPass, and that again, because I'm using NordVPN, I use NordPass. But there are other ones. LastPass was one that was around, but that got hacked. They've improved their security. I'd probably trust them again now. OnePass, there's some free ones out there as a password manager. In today's day, you should be using a different password for every single site. Going back about 20 years, I used to have about 3 passwords, because you can't remember more than that. One was for, I'm in my banking applications, I have to be really secure in this, and I don't share it anywhere outside those high value applications. One was, if I'm using other websites that I thought were okay, and one was like if I don't care if this site gets hacked. If it gets hacked and I do something, I don't care. So I'll use that. So they were my 3 passwords. And today, that's not good enough because so many sites have got hacked and your credentials have been released for them. They will reuse your credentials from one site and try it against another site to see if it works. So my strategy, 20 years ago was good. Today, it's not. You have to have an individual password for every account. And that's why I use a password manager. It will generate a password which is strong and complex. I do not even know what my password is to any of the sites anymore because it's all in the password manager. It puts them in for me. Each site has got an individual one. That is a tool I think is a must for everybody. Good password manager. I've mentioned NoPass, LastPass, OnePass. There are others out there. There's at least 3 that you can go and look at and try them out. All of these tend to give a free version as well as a paid-for version. Paid-for version will give you extra features like family controls, so you can share the account with other people and things like that. But at least get the free one. And you'll see us moving now from passwords to and passwords and passphrases to a digital ID. And again, these password managers will support that. And basically what it is, it's a token generated on that device, so only that device can connect to that website. And it's 1 token per website again. So that's where we're moving to. So we're getting rid of passwords, logins with usernames, passwords, to tokens going into and being used to identify you that way. So you unlock your password manager, it then gives you access to these tokens, and then the tokens are presented to the website to identify you. That is where we're all heading to. Yeah. So that's a tool I would definitely say to you. If you're outside in a cafe, have a VPN. Avoid the free ones. They tend to be Chinese, just because they are. Other countries probably develop them as well, but predominantly we know that's where they come from. I don't really have an issue with the governments looking at what I do because I don't particularly do anything in there that would be malicious in there anyway. But maybe you might want to avoid the free ones like that. A good paid one is not too expensive, and it will also do things like it won't log your activity. So if they were attacked, your trail of where you've been is not likely to be found. Again, you go and Google VPNs. There's lots of good YouTube videos that shows the comparison of them all and tell you what the pros and cons of them are. Find one that works for you. If you wanted to be super secure, then you're looking at a whole operating system like Tails. Tails is an operating system you can run off a CD or a USB stick. You plug it into a computer. It gives you complete anonymity. It's got a built-in VPN. It basically stops pretty much every type of monitoring of your system. But that's really if you're ultra paranoid. If you're a government person traveling abroad, you might want to use something like that. Wow. The Tor browser gives a halfway house between Tails, so it works on your own existing operating systems. It's fairly easy to use. The thing is, when you're using any of these tools, it's again that trade-off of privacy and security. You become ultra private, and you'll find that some websites stop working for you. If you disable trackers, if you disable advertising, YouTube will go, hang on, we need to be paid for what we're providing to you. You're getting it for free. We need it somehow, and that's what the advertising does. So it's that trade-off. If I have ultra privacy, I may break other functionality. So I might use Tor from time to time, particularly when I'm investigating things like the dark web and the deep state, that sort of things. When I'm doing my security research, that's when I'd really use those sort of tools. But in general, day-to-day life, what you've got on your operating system, whether it's Windows, whether it's Linux, whether it's Mac OS, whether it's iOS or Android, they've got good enough tools for general day-to-day use. You're going to have to accept that these companies are gathering information from you, governments are gathering information from you, but then do you want to put your phone away and stop using it?
No, we need that. We need that.
Exactly. It's all about balance. When I'm working with any businesses, it's all about risk. And the thing as a cybersecurity consultant to a business, there are three things a business is interested in. The first thing is having profits. There's no point in having a business if you're not generating profits. And even if you say you're a non-profit organization, actually you're using that money, that income somewhere to provide a service. So you have to have an element of profitability that helps you deliver that service to your clients. The second thing they're looking at is to reduce their costs. They want to keep their costs as low as possible because guess what? Lower costs increases profits. And the third thing they need to do is reduce risk. And that is, I want to be able to operate my business with minimal damage to it. And if you think about banks as an example, their risk, one thing is they lose money. They know that having a credit card, there will be a certain amount of fraud. They know that they are going to lose money in some ways. But if they didn't lose some money, they wouldn't be making the mega money that they do. So that's accepting that little bit of risk. I know I'm going to lose something here, but I'm making so much more. And that's what business is about. And we have to understand that their focus is increase profits, reduce costs, and reduce risk. And that's what we as the cybersecurity experts have to do. I think some of us get hung up on the fact we want to be as secure as possible. And these bad things can happen if we don't do this. Yeah, but if I accept that those bad things can happen, I can make a lot of money. I want to minimize them happening, but I want to make money. That's what businesses do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to be realistic and make sure we're delivering optimal security to them. It's good enough for them to be able to transact their business, that we understand what the risk appetite of the business is and deliver to that level.
All right, few more things that I want to really know, like this type of threats which are happening these days, like social media hacking, and people, social media are getting damaged. We have seen that lots of people's accounts being hacked, and there is also like followers mining that is happening in lots of profiles, and so how people can secure their social media? Is there any ways, strategies?
Yeah. So I see a lot of activity on the news where people are worried because they're getting trolled. They're getting malicious messages sent to them. There's hate speech against them. And I look at my Facebook stream feed, and I get really nice Facebook account. Everything I see on there is good. I get positive messages. And then they get these people and they're getting so many negative messages. I think, do you know what? Sometimes we have to take responsibility ourselves for the environments that we've put ourselves in. And one thing I will do is, if I see something negative, I'm not happy with it, I can ignore it. I can block it. I can report it. Now, reporting sometimes doesn't get very far because these organizations don't have infinite resources to check absolutely everything. But the least you can do is block those threats, recognize them for what they are, and cultivate a good environment around you. Attract into your life the positive feeds that you want to see in there. So being aware that yes, the world is not always a good place. I would say the majority of people I meet are good people. Don't let those little bad things upset you that much. Block them, get rid of them, ignore them, report them. Whatever it is, just get them out of your life. You don't need them in your lives.
Exactly.
Keep up on ideas of what a phishing attack looks like. What's the latest things that be aware, just to be aware of it. As I said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That multi-millionaire who suddenly needs to leave the country and get their money out of it. No, you're not going to get a percentage of it. That job which says, you can work from home and it's 20 to 30 minutes a day, you have to do so many tasks. The recent one, they even pay you for the first one. So they've got you on the hook here. They were actually paying £39 in this latest scam. In the first time you completed your set of tasks, and you think, this is really good. It's working. The next thing is you end up, you need to pay us in order to unlock the money that we owe you. Now, hang on.
Yeah.
You just have to say you have to pay somebody for them to give you money. Can't they just take it out of the money that's you're supposed to be getting? No, if it's like 10,000, take the 50 off that and just give me 9,950. There's always push back on those things, and I see a lot of on the phones now. There's good tools that come in here. It reports suspected spam when it phones you. Again, block them. Ignore the call. Let it drop to voicemail. If it's genuine, they'll leave you a voicemail. If it's important, they'll leave you a voicemail. You don't have to respond to it. Again, there's a lot I can go into in detail on preventing phone scams, from how they keep you on the call and it sounds like you've dropped the call and they'll play you a new dial tone, but actually they're still on the call with you. It's another long conversation that we can have just on that one.
Sure, surely I understand. So these are some of the things that we can use, like understanding, and also get rid of those followers or any kind of things who are there back texting you things that you do not like. It can probably secure your account and make you more secure in the internet. Just go rid of those and report those things as soon as possible, so more you cannot see more of this content. And as we're moving then to this time in the internet, most people are in the internet, and since you have this research done in the dark nets and things, so can you tell me some of the emerging threats that can come and affect people's life? What are the things that like from this research?
The emerging threats are really AI crafted attacks. So the phishing emails, the fake videos. I've actually got a good one recently. If you look at my Facebook page, I posted up, and it looks like I'm doing some break dancing and jumping on my hands.
Yes, I've seen that. I thought you did that.
No, that really wasn't me. That was AI doing that. But if you see famous people, like Tom Cruise, George Clooney, their faces are being used by attackers. They're being fed into an AI system. They create genuine emails. They create genuine, what look like really genuine videos. What we used to see was static pictures of people. Martin Lewis, Elon Musk, we've seen them in Bitcoin adverts. Now you're seeing videos that look so realistic that you could really believe it. Again, back in your mind, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. So if you see an actor like George Clooney, Elon Musk, Martin Lewis is a big one in the UK, advertising something which is not known. George is known for advertising Nescafe coffee. He's not known for advertising Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're the biggest threats. That the use of AI to actually sophisticate their attacks is one of the biggest threats. Then the second big threat is, again, using AI to attack systems. OpenAI have actually released defense and penetration testing tools. Well, guess what? If they can use penetration testing tools to probe systems to test them, you can use AI to penetration test a target that you want to attack. So the criminals will be using AI to do that. What we're also seeing is AI being used to generate biometric type data to try and fool like the likes of Windows Hello logins, that sort of thing. So AI is probably the biggest one we're seeing as a raise. What we're also seeing is, again, increased ransomware attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, the old brute force attacks, but just multiplied. There's more of them and they're in higher volume. There are some countries particularly who their style is to brute force things, whether that's on the battlefield or in cyberspace. They will, they'll just keep on knocking on your door until they break their way through. They're not so sophisticated. They're doing more and harder, having a go at these things. Third parties is another big one. We are all so connected to everything now that in that chain of connections, there's somebody in the middle will get broken into, and that breaks the whole chain, and they can follow what's going on and up and down that chain and intercept and do malicious things with it. So they're the big ones, I would say. the rise of AI being used to attack systems, to create false images, false videos, phishing emails, better quality of attacks, increasing of the brute forcing type attacks, so the distributed denial service, the credential stuffing, where they take all those databases, like there are gigabytes of databases with people's email addresses, login IDs, and passwords, and just stuffing them into websites to try and break into them. They're the big things that I'm seeing.
Wow. And few more things that we are seeing right now, as you see that lots of countries, developed countries, are into the digital ID. They're getting this one ID for everything, every purposes, to from their food, from their oil, buying anything. They have this digital ID, and these things are being duplicated by these hackers, and they're using it in their own name. So how can people protect their identity? Even in the online, how can I protect my identity to be safe?
So I've talked about the using these tokens in your password managers. That's one of the best ways to do. Moving forward to using the password manager, so you're not using a login ID and password anymore. It's generating from, it's protecting you that way. Digital IDs, they are pretty much device specific. So unless the person's taken your phone, then your digital ID should stay on here and only be communicated with you and the organization that that ID connects to. That's the way it should be working. So protect your phone. Make sure that it automatically locks itself. The devices now, if they've got snatched out of your hand, they'll automatically lock. If they go offline, they'll automatically lock. You make sure you've got a strong pin on there. It's not your birth date, those sort of things. But so protect the device that has got your identity on it. If it's your home computer, if it's Windows or Mac, you can have hard disk encryption on there, and it's locked in there. So even if it gets stolen, it should still stay protected. If things do get stolen, contact your suppliers, make sure you lock down that device as well, so that you can remote wipe them, all those sort of things. But digital ID, it's an interesting one. If it's voluntary, I don't have a particular issue with it. If it's, some of them are linking this digital ID to you can't work without one. Well, that's, to me, it's being forced on you. And why are you doing that? There's this argument that if you've got nothing to hide, why should you worry about it? Do you know who actually came up with that phrase?
No, can you enlighten us?
Yeah, I believe it was Goebbels. It's the Nazi Party in Germany came up with that. Yeah, the Minister of Propaganda. Yeah. So, if somebody says to you, "You've got nothing to hide," you shouldn't be worried. Nobody I know leads a perfect life. Everybody's got something that they don't want the rest of the world to know about. We're human beings, so I don't think that argument holds water. We want to make sure that our private lives stay private. And if you look at any politician, can you guarantee me any politician is 100% pure? No,
most politicians are bad people. Yes, they have done so much crime in their life. Most of them.
Yeah. So I think we have to be careful in how it's implemented and how it's used. And if it's used well, it will provide a lot of benefit to people.
Yes.
It's the abuse and being able to ensure that abuse doesn't happen. That's where I'm concerned, to make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah. So like people really need to be secure by protecting their devices, device encryption, and keeping your devices to yourself. And even if you're having any kind of repair done to your devices, you should need to be wipe everything out of that, so that they do not get your information. And in that way, you can keep your device, I think, secure, more secure, and also enable formatting your devices from distant format. What you say, like
Yeah.
remotely formatting your devices when you're outside, or you think your device can get hacked.
Yes.
These are the things I think people need to understand. So yes, these are some of the tips and tricks. I think there are some more to it, but I hope that we are reaching towards this end of this live, reaching to the end of the live stream. All right. Since you have already mentioned so many threats, emerging threats, and things and all people need to do to protect themselves. All right. And I just want to know something like so since you're moving on and you're helping businesses as well. All right. So can you tell me like how what are the things that you use like what are the strategies that you follow to help businesses? How do you prefer to help other businesses?
So my strategy for business, one of the first things I did in my early career was I learned about business. I studied with people like Tom Peters and Jay Abrahams and Tony Robbins. I learned a lifestyle and learned about business and what was important to them. We have to speak to them in their language. You know, cybersecurity can be seen as a lot of techno babble. You know, we speak
Yep.
about things, firewalls, VPNs, and like it's not our world where we operate our business. So the first thing is for us is to understand what your business is about. We need to understand what the risk appetite of the business is. For one business, $100,000 is if that was taken out of the business would fold. For others, it can be tens of millions, and the business will still keep going. So one's got a very low risk appetite, one's got a much higher risk appetite. So for the business, it's first of all, understand what your risk appetite is. Because if you don't know that, you don't know how much you should be spending on defending the risks to the business. If you spent $1 million on security, but the impact of an event is like only $100,000, well, you've wasted most of that. It's pointless. So for me, it's first of all, get that risk understanding, know what it is, then you know how you should apportion your defenses against that risk materializing. And then it's once we've understood the risk, it's like, okay, how do these risks materialize? Is it the denial of service? You look at the confidentiality, integrity, the availability of your information and your systems. We look at that and address the risks to each of those areas. So, one of the key ones is your people. Empower your people, give them the knowledge they need. Whether the developers who are creating secure code, we want to make sure the code is secure. Whether it's your receptionist who gets a phone call and says, I'm the CEO, I need to transfer this money. Can you help me sort it out very quickly? If it's got pressure on it, it's unlikely to be true. So, if it's the website developer, making sure your website is developed in a secure fashion, that it's not easily defaced or intercepted and sent off to another site. And whether it's your finance people, in your finance, the threat there is somebody tries to get to pay a bill that's unexpected, or change the banking details of your customer, or your supplier that you're going to pay money to. That sort of thing. That education of all the people within your organization to the appropriate risks is going to be one of the key things that will help you defend it. And then think about the technology and processes. So people first, technology and processes are the next things to look at. Are the technologies secured? Have you followed the manufacturer's instructions on how to operate them safely? The amount of times I've seen on systems where their password is the default one.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Most
happens.
come along in the Wi-Fi router. They use this default password, and it's easy to break.
Exactly. So make sure you've done the right things in securing the technology, and then look at the processes. Do the processes have things like dual control on them? So if you're setting up an account for a new employee, one person creates the account, another person enables the account. That way, there's two people involved, and somebody can't on their own go and say, right, I'm creating a new account, and that could pretend to be that other person, a new employee, and siphon money out through payroll through another employee that was a phantom one. So those, look at your processes as well, and that's what we do. We look at the people first, the technology, and then the processes. And finally, on that, what I would say to any business is, risk is constant. It's always there. You wouldn't be in business without risk. Your security people are there to help and support you. Things will go wrong. They will and they will learn from it, and then you can move forward. So one of the things you see is the lifetime of the CISO is typically up to 2 years, and they carry a lot of weight on their shoulders. And usually, when things go wrong, the CISO is the one in the firing line. Now, if the CISO has done his job right, he'll have told the board, this is the risks that we're addressing. This is how we're addressing. This is what we're spending on that, which is a balanced amount of money against the risk presented. And if they've done that right, things are going, but they'll have managed that. There's a couple of recent events that happened to businesses. The big one, Jaguar Land Rover in the UK went down. Marks and Spencer went down. Marks and Spencer's profits went down 99.9%. They lost like 300 million in their profits. Jaguar Land Rover, a lot of businesses could have gone out of business with them if the government had stepped in and helped them with a loan guarantee that got them through that period of time. They were significant. One of the things they didn't have, from my understanding and what was being put out by a whistleblower internally, was a playbook for ransomware. Ransomware is something we've known about for decades. To not have a playbook for it today, to me, is almost unforgivable. Hopefully, they've learned the lesson and they're putting a playbook in place. So for businesses, it's all about risk. Things will go wrong. Make sure you have plans in place for when they do go wrong. If ransomware attack happens, what would you do about it? If the internet goes down for 3 days, and this has happened to a country where it went down, where cables undersea got snapped, 3 days they were without internet for, could your business survive that? What other processes would you have in place to go get around it? So, be aware things will go wrong. Your staff will learn through that process. It's one of the best learning opportunities they will have. Do you really want to lose them after they've just learned that major lesson?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So
we need people.
Yeah, we need these people who have had the experience of been there, done it before, know your business well, protect it better. Make sure people learn, constantly learning, constant and never-ending improvements. That's one of Tony Robbins' things. It's good for life. It's also good for cybersecurity.
Exactly. So thank you for sharing all the things for the businesses, for the company, emerging company, and all the startup people can learn from these tips if you guys are watching us, and implement as soon as possible, because cyber threats is real threat. It is emerging, it is learning, it is an evolving threat. All right. And every single day it is getting more smarter due to the technology, due to the AI. And if you start this as soon as possible, get some help, get help from Andrew, or also you can get in touch with him and improve your businesses, improve your life, improve your personal life. And this thing will help you to protect yourself, protect your money, protect your finances, things that you hard earned. All right. If things are at risk at this moment, if you're not knowing this thing, and most people, there are lots of several people are getting scammed, getting duped, and they are losing their finances each day with a new kind of threat that is emerging. And if you stay alert and keep this precaution at place, then you can protect yourself. All right. So one of the things that I just want to ask you about, what is that message? What is your message to the world? What is your message to everybody that they need to do from your end? One message.
One message. The newspapers are full of fear. Things will go wrong. Bad things have happened. This company's lost millions. It happens. That's part of life. Do not worry about the fear. Focus on doing the right things. Focus on that risk reduction, risk management. Be safe, educate yourself, think about if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That is going to be helpful in pretty much everything you look at. Every phishing attack that you're going to see, just have that in the back of your mind. Is it too good to be true? Am I under pressure? Am I under pressure on this email? If it's time sensitive, that should be triggering a warning. It may be true, but it's worth checking out. So that's my message.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your message to the world. I hope people are getting this. And it may take some time to people to understand. Do watch this video repeatedly a few more times, and you can learn lots of things that is important. All right. We're really happy to have Andrew with us today and sharing all these important factors in this trending, emerging threats of online space. And yeah, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for being in this interview, sharing your wisdom to us, to all the audiences. I hope everybody has enjoyed. And yeah, speak to you soon. This is our first interview with Andrew. I know there are a few more, lots of things that we can learn from him because of his experiences. But yeah, we will be ending this interview now. And if you have any questions, then let us know in the comment box below. We'll be surely be happy to ask Andrew later on, and we can create another interview later on from those questions that we got to know. If you have some queries, then let us know. All right, we'll be surely happy to answer you back. All right, and thank you guys for joining in. Thank you, Andrew, and stay safe, stay happy. Speak to you soon again.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Bye bye.